Nice launch trajectory and countdown net. Pad is clear.
10, 9, 8.
Launch auto sequence has
7,
started.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Go for launch.
Vehicle is supersonic.
Stage separation confirmed. Dragon, separation confirmed. Stage 1 is transonic. Landing legs have deployed. And Falcon 9 has landed.
Hello everyone, my name is Krista Rhodes and I am a structures engineer here at SpaceX. I'll be your host for today's Starlink mission, which marks SpaceX's 37th launch of the year and 236th overall mission to date. On your screen is a live view of our Falcon 9 rocket on Space Launch Complex 40 in Florida. And this launch will actually be the first of 2 launches for SpaceX today, with the CRS-28 mission targeted to lift off just a few hours from now from Launch Pad 39A, carrying supplies for the International Space Station. Today also marks the 13-year anniversary of our first ever Falcon 9 launch from Pad 40 back in June of 2010. The satellites flying on today's mission are our second generation satellites, also called the V2 Minis. And the full-size V2 satellites are designed to be flown on Starship, while the V2 Minis have been modified to fly inside our payload fairing on board Falcon 9. And while the V2 Minis are smaller than the full-size V2s, they are still much bigger than our previous satellites. And more importantly, they include more advanced phased array antennas and the use of E-band for backhaul, which will enable Starlink to provide 4 times more capacity per satellite than earlier iterations. And this means these V2 Mini Starlink satellites will ultimately enable us to provide more bandwidth with increased reliability to connect
retract has started.
To connect millions of more people around the world with high-speed internet. At T-minus 4 minutes and 15 seconds, the range is green and ready to support, and weather is looking 90% go with only a 10% chance of violating weather criteria. And the teams are currently tracking no issues with the vehicle or spacecraft. And the clamp arms around the second stage have fully opened. And it may look very slight on your screen, but the strong back has began to recline away from the vehicle in preparation for takeoff. And coming up next at T-minus 3 minutes, we should hear that Stage 1 has completed liquid oxygen loading.
Stage 1 LOX load complete.
At T-minus 3 minutes, Falcon 9's first stage is now fully loaded with RP1 and liquid oxygen, and we are waiting for completion of LOX loading on the second stage about 50 seconds from now. And the white clouds you see circling around the vehicle are completely nominal and the result of our super chilled liquid oxygen coming into contact with the relatively warm ambient air at the launch site, turning the liquid oxygen back to its gaseous state. And again, we're waiting for Stage 2 LOX load completion at T-minus 2 minutes.
Stage 2 LOX load complete.
Falcon 9 is now fully loaded with 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. And the booster, or first stage of the rocket that you see on your screen, is flying for its 3rd time today, having previously supported Crew 6 and M-Power B. And after liftoff and stage separation, this booster is
Ground gas
scheduled to land on our drone ship. Just read the instructions. And today's mission marks the 170th reuse of an orbital class rocket. And coming up next, we'll hear a call out over the nets updating us that Falcon 9 is in startup, meaning that the flight computers have taken over the launch countdown. And we can expect this at T-minus 1 minute.
Falcon 9 is in startup.
And we just heard the call out that Falcon 9 is now in startup. In a few seconds, we should hear our launch director, or LD, give the final go for launch.
LD, go for launch.
And as you just heard, the launch director has given the final go to proceed for launch. Let's sit back and watch as Falcon 9 takes our 22 Starlink satellites into space.
T-minus 30 seconds. Seconds. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ignition, engines full power, and liftoff of Starlink 6-4. Go Starlink, go Falcon. Falcon 9, pitching down range.
Stage 1 chamber pressure nominal.
At T plus 30 seconds, Falcon 9 has successfully lifted off from Space Launch Complex 40 from Cape Canaveral, Florida at 5:56 a.m. Eastern Time. The next major milestone coming up is max Q, which is when the vehicle experiences the greatest amount of external stresses as it ascends through the Earth's atmosphere.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
And Falcon 9 is now traveling supersonic, meaning it is going faster than the speed of sound.
Max Q.
We are about 1 minute away from a series of events being MECO, stage separation, SES-1, and fairing separation. MECO stands for main engine cutoff, which is when all 9 Merlin engines will shut down in preparation for stage separation. During stage separation, pneumatic pushers will separate the first and second stages, and the first stage will begin its journey back to Earth, while the second stage will light its Merlin vacuum engine, marking second engine start 1, to propel our Starlink satellites to their planned orbits. And shortly after, the fairing halves will separate and fall away from the vehicle to later be recovered. And let's keep an eye out for these events happening in pretty quick succession, in about 20 seconds.
MECO.
Stage separation confirmed.
Evacuation.
And as you just saw and heard over the nets, we had successful MECO, stage separation, and SES-1. We're now coming up on fairing separation from the second stage in a few seconds.
Fairing separation confirmed.
And we will be attempting to recover both fairing halves using our recovery vessel Bob. Both of the fairing halves that supported today's mission are flight proven, with one half flying for its 6th time and the other flying for its 9th. And currently, the first stage is on its way back to Earth towards our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions, and the MVAC engine attached to the second stage is continuing its burn, which will last for another several minutes.
Both stages continue on nominal trajectories.
And as you just heard, Stage 1 and Stage 2 are both following nominal trajectories and performing as expected. And as you can see on your screen, we have 2 out of Falcon's 4 grid fins in view on the left, and they measure 4 feet by 5 feet and help us guide the booster to its landing site by actively changing the vehicle's center of pressure. And as I mentioned earlier, today's Starlink mission marks SpaceX's 37th mission just this year and 236th mission overall. And coming up next in the mission is entry burn on the first stage, which is the first of 2 burns it will go through in preparation for landing. Designed and manufactured by SpaceX, Starlink is the world's largest satellite internet constellation. And Starlink satellites operate in low Earth orbit, which enables the delivery of high-speed, low-latency internet to people living in remote and rural locations around the globe. And Starlink is currently live in 71 markets and countries around the world.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
Stage 1 FTS is saved.
And there's the call out for Stage 1 entry burn. And Stage 1, which we also call the booster, has ignited engines 1, 5, and 9 to slow it down for atmospheric re-entry.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And you just heard the call out that the entry
Stage
burn
2 FTS is saved.
that the entry burn on the first stage has completed. And the next major milestone coming up will be the beginning of our Stage 1 landing burn, where a single Merlin engine is lit up to scrub Falcon's last bit of velocity before touching down. And we can expect that last landing burn to begin in about a minute from now.
Nominal.
Stage 1 transonic.
And you just heard the call out that the first stage is now transonic, meaning it is traveling nearly the speed of sound.
Stage 1 landing burn.
And there's confirmation that the Stage 1 landing burn has started in preparation for touchdown on our drone ship, Just Read the Instructions.
Stage 2 terminal guidance.
Stage 1 landing leg deploy. Stage 1 landing confirmed.
And this Falcon 9 first stage has now successfully launched and landed for the 3rd time, and we're now coming up on second engine cutoff.
SECO.
Expected loss of signal, Cape Canaveral.
Nominal orbit insertion.
And there you heard the call that we were waiting for SECO-1 and confirmation of good orbit. Today's landing marks our 197th overall landing of an orbital class rocket, including Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy missions. And with confirmation of successful first stage landing and second engine cutoff, that will wrap up our coverage for today. Be sure to check our social media for confirmation of Starlink deployment. And if one launch wasn't enough for you today, be sure to check out our CRS-28 launch coming up in just a few hours if weather cooperates, with coverage beginning around 8:45 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you next time.